Sunday, Sunday, the end of another week, the cusp of a new week, new adventures. Before I get started on what I'm doing today, I want to give a shout out to Albert Anguilla Rosell. He's a wonderful bassist from Madrid, Spain, who has, it's been blowing my mind. Every song I've done on here, he has transcribed beautifully. And I just sat here and downloaded all of them, and I'm going to print them all out and put them in a binder just to have. You know, it's funny, sometimes you play a song and then you look at the transcription and you go, I couldn't play that. It's like too complicated. He's done like just an absolutely stellar thing. He posted on Facebook on his page. So his name is spelled, it's Albert, A-L-B-E-R-T, Anguilla, A-N-G-U-E-L-A, and then Rosell, R-O-S-E-L-L. He's got a Facebook page, and on every one of his, on his page, every one of the songs I've done on all of these videos, he's transcribed. And if you want to, if you're a bassist and you want to study any of this, it is so worth checking out. He's done, it's almost like looking at an illuminated manuscript or the Dead Sea Scrolls or something. He's pretty remarkable. I write to him and just thank him over and over about what a remarkable undertaking he's done. I didn't, it's nothing I requested or anything. It's just something he did. And then I found it, and Steve Bailey from Berkeley contacted me and said, you got to check this out. And it's amazing. So thank you, Albert. You're one hell of a guy and doing just beautiful work. What I'm just going to go back. I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I'm just going to go back and visit it today. I figured it was a good Sunday song. On the one hand, it's a feel-good song, and on the other hand, it is a deep lyric song that is actually quite dark. The song was written by the incredible John Prine, who just recently passed away, one of the great songwriters of the generation, and Bobby Braddock. The two of them wrote this together. The artist is Gail Davies, and the album was Where's the Woman to Go, and it's an album that I co-produced with Gail. And Gail was really one of the real pioneers of strong women in country music, because forever it was always a good old boys club, and not to denigrate by any means the female artists, but most of them, were told, here's the songs we're doing, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And Gail came in like a force of nature. She was very strong, very smart, very opinionated. And I think she made a lot of the good old guard somewhat uncomfortable because they weren't used to a woman coming in and wanting to take charge of things, but which worked against her, but also gave her amazing credibility. And so many women in country music really, we'll say it, they owe so much to Gail in terms of their direction and how they handled their careers and everything. So I took copious notes on this one because there's a lot of people that we got involved in this. It was produced by Gail and I, and it was the main engineering was Bill Schnee, who's one of the greatest engineers that ever was. And I believe he is in Nashville now, but he was in LA for most of his career, and Bob Bullock also engineered on it. Now, Bill Schnee, when I first started working with Bill, he worked at Producer's Workshop, which was just behind Mastering Labs on Hollywood Boulevard, Doug Sachs's Mastering Labs, where he mastered. So there was a couple of mastering engineers in Los Angeles, and Doug was right at the pinnacle of it all, a true character. Almost looked like he could have been Carlos Vega's brother. I mean, he was a character. And I remember we would go sit in there, like when we had our section albums done, Doug mastered them. And it was a magical process of going into mastering. And you'd sit there as the cutting lathe was going by with your stuff. and you were creating, full albums. I mean, full conceptual albums. And you'd hear that first track go by, and we'd all be sitting there with him and just kind of go, song would end, and we would listen and go. And that's where we wanted the second song to start. Sometimes you wanted these songs butted up real close for energy and conceptual moment. And sometimes you wanted a bigger space just to kind of take a deep breath before the next track began. So I always used to go, whenever I was at Producer's Workshop, I'd always go hang out with Doug for a while because he was an entertaining character. And I remember being in Producer's Workshop working with Bill Schnee, and we got a phone call and they said Elvis had just died. And all I could think of was, I mean, it was tragic that Elvis died, but all I could really think was the gravy train just got derailed, because I knew most of the guys in Elvis's band, and that was a gig for life, a great gig for the rest of your life with Elvis. And all of a sudden, it's over. He's gone now. And a number of the guys ended up moving over and joining Neil Diamond after that. But, Ronnie Tutt, great drummer. I mean, all these guys were just amazing, but it really kind of just hit me like, the gravy train's over. It's like, wow. But so on this record, it's me on bass, the great Mike Baird. I brought Mike from Los Angeles to do this. Mike and I did lots of records together. Mike's one of the best drummers in LA. And when I put up the post of all the Mike Post themes that we did, Mike was the primary drummer on almost all of that stuff. Not sure if it's still up. It came up with some kind of weird copyright thing. The things where they can really make some. I don't make any money, so they could make some money. They suddenly, just put blocks in front of everything. I don't get that. So Mike Baird, and then Billy Payne brought Billy in to play keyboards, and Billy's one of the founders of Little Feat, and he toured with James for years, and Bob Seger, and all kinds of people. So it's a real fun group of characters. Buddy Spiker played fiddle. Two of the greatest guitar players that ever were, and they worked in tandem. On so many of the projects that I did. The unbelievably great Reggie Young and Billy Joe Walker Jr., both of whom are now gone, and it's heartbreaking. But boy, I spent a lot of time in the studio with these two characters, and man, they were unbelievable. Vince Gill playing mandolin. Farrell Morris played percussion. Jerry Douglas playing dobro. It don't get better than Jerry Douglas playing dobro. And then this is where I discovered people knew of him, but I discovered Paul Franklin playing at the Hall of Fame, or as we called it, the Hall of Shame Hotel, and brought him in after hearing him play. So he played steel, and Lloyd Green also played steel on this. The background vocals on this were Gail, Gene Morford, Julia Waters, Marianne Kennedy, Dolly Parton, J.D. Souther, and Vince Gill. Not a bad section to bring in here. So we recorded it at Emerald Studios, some of it at Woodland Studios, and some at Bullet Studios, all down in Nashville. And then it was mixed at Bill Schnee's studio here in Los Angeles. And then Bill's now, he closed the studio down and moved back to Nashville, and he's got a room down there now. So, but the song is Unwed Fathers. And the thing that was interesting about this was we thought this would be just a really great single for her, and went to RCA. I think the label was RCA. Went to them and told them, here's this, pitched it to them, said, here's the song we'd like to have as like the next single. And they said, absolutely not. Hold on just a minute. I hate this, when you sit there and the laptop times out on you. Make sure everything, hold on 1 second here for me. I've got a couple bits of business to take care of. Okay, look at this. Yeah, Amateur Sunday. Welcome to Amateur Sunday. But the label didn't want to release it because they thought it was too controversial. It put women, it put men in a bad light because it's called Unwed Fathers. And I looked at him, I said, Gail didn't write this. John Prine and Bobby Braddock wrote it. It was written by two men, so why do you have an issue with this? But they just would not go for it. They were like just going, nah, not going to happen, which was really sad. But when we were in the studio, I thought like a perfect background vocalist for this would have been Dolly. And it's so funny, when you record Dolly, you can almost turn her mic off and set her 2 blocks away, and she's going to still cut through like a hot knife through warm butter. It's unbelievable. And Gail, is so funny, unbeknownst to me doing this, Gail just sent me this picture. Let me put this down here. I hope you can see it. This is from the session. There's Gail and myself and Dolly in there. Little Dolly with a Lee Sklar, Dolly Parton, who came to the studio to sing harmony on Gail's Unwed Fathers. A nice little piece of history there. Pretty cool. So we got that. So I am now going to, after all this talking, I don't know if I can remember the song. We'll see. But I'm going to go ahead and play Unwed Fathers. John Prine, Bobby Braddock, 2 men wrote this song. I leave it at that. Gail does a beautiful job. So here we go. It starts off with a beautiful line by Jerry Douglas. It's such a great song, but it really tells a tale of abandonment, of irresponsibility. And I could see how the good old boys at RCA were not thrilled about this. And I could have understood them really being uptight about it had Gail written it. But the fact that John Prine and Bobby Braddock wrote it really is just one of those things that just pissed me off so much. It's two men acknowledging irresponsibility of unwed fathers and abandoning the family and leaving the woman pregnant and to deal with it herself. And I was so thrilled when Dolly came down. I love Dolly. I've worked on her 9 to 5 album. Didn't play on 9 to 5. That song had been cut, and then we went in to do the album. And it was really great. Mike Post ended up producing that album, and he was so anxious about it and just kept telling the band. I think we cut that at Western Recorders on Sunset. It was, part of the United Western Complex back in the day. And we were in Studio 3, the small room there. But we had this really great rhythm section, all the guys. Mike Baird was playing drums, but Mike Post was just going, guys, really, this album is important to me. I don't want you to screw this up for me. I don't want you guys to be jerks when Dolly comes in and say anything rude or, he was just going on and on. And suddenly Dolly blows in the door and she takes one look at Mike Baird. And at the time, Mike Baird's nickname was Pooh Bear. All his cases had Winnie the Pooh painted on them and stuff. And there was, because he's like 5'6" or something, but probably, close to 300 pounds, 280 at the time, somewhere in there. And he had some pretty good man boobs going at that point. And Dolly comes walking in the studio and just says hello and looks around, looks at Mike Baird and goes, "Oh, great, a titty contest." And I could just see Mike Post's face just drained of blood because the gloves were off and everybody just was going at it in there. And it was hysterical because Dolly is one of the most beautifully self-deprecating people I've ever known. You just, when she talks about it costs a lot of money to look this cheap and things. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. Comes from, absolutely, a bunch of kids, rural country folk, no electricity, no plumbing in the house. And she's gone from that to creating an incredible empire. Everything she touches is kind of, she's got like the Midas touch. And her husband's Carl is an absolute delight. I've loved going out to her house in Nashville and hung out with her in LA, which she had her apartment, and her assistant Judy was just great. And we always had a great time. And when we ended up doing the movie Rhinestone, we spent a lot of time hanging together, and I would drive her into work and stuff. She's a real hoot, but man, what you see is what you get. She's the real deal. So it was really fun when I called her and said, "Would you come in and sing on this song?" And she said, "Oh, absolutely, I'd love to." And Gail was thrilled, to have her, because it's one of those people that Gail just went, "Oh, it's Dolly Parton, man." It's like, because Dolly was truly like the original of like strong, powerful women in country music, but she could lay it on in such a unique way where guys thought they were in charge. And they had no idea that they had a ring through their nose and were being kind of just pulled around. And Gail had that same kind of an energy there, but it was tough because she would come into meetings and lay out what she thought was right, and even if the guys thought it was right, they would fight it just because a woman thought of it. And that good old boy mentality is just so sickening. I've never gotten it. I think, the idea of sharing concepts and thoughts and ideas and everything between men and women is what makes life interesting. I love when women are involved and they give their spin on something because it's very different. In the same way, I absolutely love how many female bass players there are now. And I just love listening to women play bass because they have just they're bringing a slightly different thing to it. And you've got just these, like I keep talking about Rebecca Johnson down in Australia, or Esperanza Spalding, Rhonda Smith and Tal Wilkenfeld and oh God, Antonella Mazza, Nikki West. There's tons and tons of them, and they're just I love hearing them play. It's just a great, slightly different tweak that they bring to the table. So, okay, well, enjoy. God damn, I should just do a cut of Rambling Man, because that's sort of what I end up turning into, is Rambling Man here. I end up using Frankenstein on this because that's what I used on the track on the original recording. So have a great rest of your Sunday. I've got to take a run and deliver something to somebody, but I'm going to probably just leave it on their front porch and scatter. Be safe, be careful out there. I know when I talk about these things, some people may be in areas, especially around the world, where they've got more of a handle on this virus than over here. But in Los Angeles, we're still getting some of the highest numbers we've ever had. The amount of deaths are at their highest. The amount of illness is at its highest since all of this began. And it's just heartbreaking to think how many families are suffering at this point, and especially for the people that are dying, and they're dying a very lonely death. Their family can't be with them, holding their hand, talking to them, saying goodbye. Everything is distance through windows, through Zoom and all that. So understand the absolute tragic quality of what's going on right now. I'm so hopeful that they will find a cure for this, and that we will move into some kind of a new norm, at least a safe normalcy. I don't think we'll ever see normal as we had 6 months ago. What was normal will never exist again. And some of it may be for the better. People have started to reevaluate their needs and their priorities, and realizing that maybe a lot of stuff that was going on really wasn't necessary in our lives. And now that we've been sequestered, we've focused down a little bit more on things that are really more immediate to a daily life. So I don't know, it's just my way of thinking, but that's just me. So take good care, and I will see you all in the new week. So bye-bye.